also to Matthew, to Melanie, and to Louise, and to Caroline in sorting it all out with all the breakout rooms and keeping everything coordinated in between, and all of that's done a sterling job. And you know, we wouldn't have been able to do this without Caroline helping us to do that. So thank you very much to everybody. I'm going to share my screen and just run through just a few things, just to remind you of some of the things that we've covered over the last few sessions. You'll remember right back at the beginning, we presented the idea of the scale up journey and these different stepping stones, and how important it is to identify where we are, but to think about where the next one is. So, but even if we're not trying to get to the next one, if we're on a stepping stone, how do we make sure that we're working as well and productively, as efficiently as possible on that stepping stone? And we talked about the idea of leadership. And you remember we went right back at the very first session around leadership, and at the early stage, or certainly up to around about 8 to 12 employees, that really is about developing our own skills as a leader. Beyond that, it's about bringing other people behind us and developing that leadership structure, that leadership team behind us. So, and as somebody once said to me, if you want a better business, Kevin, get a better one of you. So, you know, that's certainly that early stages. And what you know now that we've done, and the way that we've put the Peer Networks program together, in order to successfully scale from one stepping stone to the next, or even to be the best that you can be on one of those stepping stones, there are those 4 pillars that we look at. And you know now that we've covered some of those, the elements of some of those in the various sessions that we've done, but we combine that with the peer networking, and that's what we've done, and that brings it all to life, and it gives us that chance of going on that journey together and going further, and that's what we're about, is going further together. And a lot of what we've talked about and a lot of what we've done, and you'll remember these sort of slides from before, is bridging that gap between the strategic side, the visioning side, and the execution. And then a lot of that is through alignment, that missing piece. And a lot of things that we've done have been about trying to improve that alignment, and even the session today with cohesive teams is very much around that alignment side of things. And just to give you that recap of what we've covered. So if you remember, we started off with that first session way back in the end of January around leadership and visioning. That was that one. Then we went on to building for value. Then we looked at the first things first through that laser focus idea of the quarterly thrust, the 90-day planning. Then we looked at the business rhythm, so championing that execution. And then we picked up on the 2 remaining pillars of cash, and today we looked at the people side of things. So you'll remember that right back again at that we did the DISC profiling. I've just put up the one here of us as the facilitators, but you within your cohorts you had these as well. So have a think back on those, and just try and remember it, and tease out any of the learnings that you've got for that, and maybe thinking about whether it's appropriate to do more of that with your teams, and how's the balance in your team looking. And you'll remember again from that report that it was structured from the leadership aspect around the visioning, alignment and execution, and it teased out some of your challenges as well as your strengths within that report. So it might be worth you going back and just reminding yourself of some of those, so that we don't go too far and start to forget some of those things. And you'll remember this kind of infinity loop about why it's so important about knowing ourselves first, so that we can then lead ourselves before we can even lead others, really. But about the fact that we've all got these traits, we've got various traits from those personality profiles. They mean that we will behave and we will act in certain ways, which will have consequences, which will then end up with the results. So thinking about those, both from ourselves, but also for other people we're working with, understanding those traits, and think about, okay, well, yeah, there's some good ones in there, but maybe there's some things that we can address a little bit and maybe change the way that we act. So not just doing it in the first way that comes off the cuff, but maybe we can change that a little bit, and that will then maybe have some positive consequences, which might have some big impacts in terms of the results. I'd like to remind you of Stephen Covey's 7 habits of highly effective people, and many of these are weaved in through some of the things that we've been doing. And I know we've had various discussions in my group about about beginning with the end in mind quite often, but these are really quite a good framework to think of. And building that back to that submarine captain video about then thinking about how we give intent to our teams rather than just giving orders all the time, and how we get that culture going of where we all are pulling in the same direction, but we're also taking ownership. We're empowered to do things rather than the captain having to be more intelligent than the 200 shipmates that he's got. And we left you at the beginning in that first session with the challenge as to what new habit are you going to start and embed this quarter to improve your leadership. And as I say, those 7 habits from Stephen Covey are a good place to start with those. We also looked at the vision builder, and it might be a great opportunity for you to take another look back at that. If that's sat in a drawer since that first one, you might want to have a look at that. I mean, hopefully you've been maybe referring back to it along the way in the groups, but if you haven't, certainly go back to it, have a look at it, see if it still stands, see what you might want to mend based on all of the discussions and the things that we've covered over the various sessions. We also did that value builder exercise, if you remember, looking at the drivers of value within the business. So again, we teased out 1 or 2 drivers from there. You might want to have another look back at that and just make sure you haven't forgotten what those were about. Just remind yourselves. And the challenge we set you at the end of that one was, what tangible things are you going to implement to improve your key value driver, or maybe value drivers if you picked a couple. And then we went on to the 90-day planning to try and get that idea of the clarity. But again, that's a way of starting to build in the alignment as well. And if you think today about the 5 behaviors of cohesive teams, that pyramid that we were looking at, then we're looking here at getting that clarity and alignment and commitment then through to getting the results done. And it's a great way of helping to do that. And the challenge that we set to you at the end of that one was, how are we going to ensure that we get that idea of first things first on a 90-day cycle in your business. Then we link that all with strategy, trying to link that strategy and execution through the business rhythm. And this idea of the right rhythm, the cadence or the heartbeat of your business, to make sure we are bridging the short term with the long term. And the things to remember out of that are perhaps not all businesses do, are how do we make sure that we balance keeping the plate spinning with moving in the right direction? How do we handle any curveballs that come up in the meantime, so that we're not distracted completely from those priorities that we said, but equally we're not ignoring whatever those things are that have come at us? And how do we harness the collective brain power of the team that we've got and generate some peer pressure along the way? And how do we gather business intelligence? And that came up in my group this afternoon in terms of discussion. How do we build competitive intelligence and business intelligence into the rhythm of the business? Then we went on to cash last week. And these 2 tools that should be fresh in your mind from last week, the cash conversion cycle and looking at that, and the 7 financial levers. And we left you with, again, how are you going to build continual improvement and profit in your profitability and cash into your business rhythm? And then today, of course, we looked at the people side of things, and making sure that how are we going to get the most out of our people is effectively the challenge there. So that's what we've done. It is a great opportunity, I think, now for us all to reflect a little bit. Maybe not right this second, but maybe give it but before too long, reflect on what we've learned, but what we're going to change as a result of what we've done. There's been lots of things that you've taken away as takeaways and potential things to change within your business. And what we'll be doing is we'll be sending out little summaries to everybody of the key things, your key takeaways that you've had, that will help you to think about those things and not forget some of those earlier ones. But do take a moment to really think about what you're going to do differently as a result. And the final challenge that we would set you are, how are you going to make what you've done in peer networks count? We don't want it to be one of these things that people go on and it's great while you're on it, but then actually when you finished it, nothing much changes. So how are you going to make sure that that you take some of these things forwards and you make them count, and that you now go away and make a difference you know, make a difference in your lives and make a difference to other people's lives as well as you go. And there you are. So we've been Peer Networks in association with Worcestershire Business Central and BizSmart. So thank you very much, everyone, for taking part in Peer Networks. And that's
Brilliant.
it, folks.